Welcome back to Mirror's Signal podcast. I'm your host, Josh Holleran, and today we are joined by Miz. In the episode, Miz will be sharing his qualifying process and how he managed to get through all three parts of the ADI qualifying in just under 2 months. He shares what he done and how he managed each step. And then towards the end of the episode, he shared some great messages for people that are coming into the industry. If you enjoy this episode, make sure that you give it a like and you leave any thoughts that you've got in the comments. Make sure that you subscribe to the channel so that you don't miss any episodes as they go live. And there will be a new episode every Sunday. If you have any questions for me, you can get me in the Facebook group or the Facebook page, and they're both available at Mirror's Signal Podcast. If you're currently watching the video format, you can also listen to the audio version of all of the episodes, and that's available at the YouTube Music app. If you're a recently qualified ADI and would like to share your story, I'd love to hear from you, and we can arrange a chat and maybe we can do an episode. But now we will get on with this week's. I hope you all enjoy it. Miz, welcome. How are you doing?
I'm good, thank you, Josh. Thank you for inviting me.
No problem. I'm really looking forward to this. We spoke a little bit early on in your journey, didn't we? I think, was it just after part 1 or just after part 2 that we had a quick chat?
Honestly, I can't remember. It just feels like an age ago, to be honest. I know we certainly spoke before my part 3. I think I sent you some of my a couple of my videos.
Yeah,
some of my lesson videos.
Well, I think it might surprise a few people when we say why it's all a bit of a blur and why we maybe can't remember at what stage we spoke to each other, because we was just chatting before we started recording and looking at dates. And you went from part 1 to part 3 in about 6 weeks. Is that right?
It is right. Yeah. I couldn't remember myself. I thought it was 2 or 3 months, but it wasn't. It was about 6 weeks. Yeah.
So a month and a half.
Yeah, roughly. Beginning of January was my part 1, and then on the 3rd week of February, I believe, I passed my part 3. Yeah.
How have you managed that? How have you gone from passing a part 1 to passing a part 3 in 2 calendar months, basically?
I think, as we spoke about just a little while ago, Josh, off the camera, I don't know is the answer, but I think more a case of hard work and dedication. That's what it was. I just sort of just took the ball by the horns and went for it. And like we said, I felt that it might have been a stroke of luck, but on reflection, I did put an awful lot of effort into each component of the ADI qualifying process, and thankfully it paid off.
So I'd like to know, maybe we'll go through each stage if that works for you. And I know you're not going to remember kind of every detail, but it'd be interesting to hear how you've managed it. So if we can go back to part 1.
Sure.
What was your preparation like for that?
Part 1 was pretty simple, to be honest. My DBS came back like 2 days before Christmas. And then I managed to get all my material in. So I got driving the essentials, and I've got my highway code, and I didn't download an app. I logged into the DVSA theory. I can't remember what it's called now. It's gone.
It's like their app, is it? Their app where you can do for ADI. They have one for learners as well, don't they?
They do. So you could choose ADI or the learner. So I got the material, and I just spent the whole of Christmas looking through that material, doing mock test after mock test after mock test. It did get to a stage where I knew all the answers, because it's just a repetition of the same questions, right? Hazard perception became easy. I was scoring 5 on all the videos because I just knew that it's going to be the same thing that comes up, right? So I was really confident after doing that. And I thought, yeah, I've got this. This is going to be a no-brainer. And then I think during Christmas week, I booked my theory test. And I couldn't find one anywhere local to me. So I had to go. I mean, I live in London. I live in Southwest London. But I had to travel out to Gatwick to do my theory. And that was the earliest available slot right after Christmas. So I just took it. I went down there. Was a little bit nervous. But then went into the exam, done the exam. I think I did it. I think you get 90 minutes to do that, right?
I think so.
I did it. I did it in about 35 minutes. And I thought, no, I must have missed something. There must be something I haven't done. Went over the questions, made sure that I was happy with them, did the hazard perception, and came out. I didn't score great. I'll be honest with you. I just scraped the hazard perception, but the actual questions, I think I scored a 96 on it. So that wasn't too bad. But the hazard perception, I think I just scraped it by like 2 points. So it was wiping sweat off your brow, after coming out of that. But the actual preparation, it was all the highway code, driving, the essential skills, and the app. I just went over it over and over and over again until I couldn't get less than 100%. I was hitting 100% on all the mock tests. And I thought, okay, I've got to be ready for it. And I'm a bit of a have a go kind of person. So I thought, all right, I'm ready. Let's just give it a go and see what happens.
I done similar. The difference was I didn't do the preparation you did. I was just like, I've passed a mock test. I'll go do this. And then I failed. And then I failed a second time. And I was like, right, I've got to study for this. I've got to put some work in. And then, I passed on the third attempt to the part one. But it does sound like from the very beginning, like you're studying with the part one, you was very committed. You put a lot of time in. You knew you needed to study. So I guess, if you know you've put the work in, you're going to be going somewhat confident into the test because you know that you've done all that you can in preparation for it.
No, absolutely. And I guess that's with most things that we as people should be doing. If you have a goal, then try and achieve it. And the only way you're going to try and get a good chance at achieving it is put it in the effort, right? But I was doing 4 or 5 mock tests a day, that kind of thing. So it was a crazy amount of work that I was putting into it. Yeah.
And then you got the rewards with a pass very early January.
Yeah, I think it was 8th of January. So straight after Christmas week, kids had gone back to school. I went one morning down to Gatwick and done it. And I was quite chuffed. Not that I was doubting, but I'm the kind of person that when I get into that situation, I begin to doubt myself. And I think to myself, oh my God, have I done the right thing? Have I prepared enough? But thankfully it worked out well.
Nice. With that preparation, did you have, so we're almost going back another step. Were you part of a school at this point, or had you just read the information on the government's website? How much information did you have to start the process and get to a part one?
I love research, right? So I love to just research everything before I delve into it. And I will, a lot of my friends take the mick out of me. They're like, oh, he's the spreadsheet guy. He's got to do it all on the spreadsheet before he works out whether it's going to work or not. So I'm a bit like that. I've done a lot of research, government websites, Facebook pages, Facebook posts. I did find conflicting information, whether a training school was necessary, whether it should be a local trainer, a local ADI, whether we need to speak to somebody with more knowledge, obviously. But then the majority of the information that I sort of got was that for part 1 and part 2, you don't necessarily need a trainer. So I sort of went with that, and I thought, okay, not time is of the essence, but I could save myself a few quid more than anything else. Thankfully, I can read and write, and anybody that's going into this industry needs to be able to read and write. So long as I can absorb the information and be able to regurgitate it, I should be okay. No, I didn't go with a training school. And I'm sure we're going to talk about this later on, but yeah, a lot of the information that I got from Facebook and from just general posts on the internet was, we don't need that for part 1 and potentially part 2. I wasn't even thinking about part 3 at that point. It wasn't even in the forefront of my mind. But yeah, it was all done on my own.
Nice. So we'll move on to your part 2. Was that the same? You prepared, how was your preparation for that? Was that on your own? Let's go for that, part 2.
Part 2, so obviously after passing part 1, I pulled up just before the M23 coming back into London, thinking, right, I'm going to book my part 2 now before I even get home. Couldn't do it because I think you have to wait 24 hours for the systems to update. So I drove back home, not able to book a part 2. Once I did get home, I managed to log in and book a part 2. The part 2 was put on hold. And obviously with all the research and reading I'd done, not that it disheartened me, it was more a case of, okay, it's on hold. Do I have to wait 6 months? What am I going to do for 6 months now? Like, I can't drive every single day and train myself for like 6 months, or go to a training school for 6 months. I just can't afford it, and I don't have the time to do that. So it was put on hold. And then I thought, you know what? It was put on hold in Red Hill. So that's also down near Gatwick. Why did I choose Red Hill? I honestly don't know, is the answer. I could have chosen closer test centers, much closer to me, but I chose Red Hill for some reason. And I know the aerodrome down there. So maybe that's what, psychologically, my mind took me down to that aerodrome. Booked it at Red Hill. And then started driving down to Red Hill at the weekends. So I'd go on a Sunday morning, didn't know anything about test routes, didn't know any of the roads in Red Hill. I found one YouTube video on an ADI test route that had been done, I think 6 months prior to when I was looking in January. So I wasn't sure whether it was correct, wasn't sure if the route was correct. But then I thought to myself, why do I really need to worry about the route? I need to be focusing on the skill set. So then that quickly changed my mind, and I stopped going to Red Hill. And all I did was started focusing on the maneuvers that we do as drivers every day and all day. Parallel park, reverse bay park. We don't even think about it. We just do it. And as I started to do those things with like some conscience, I realized that actually it's not difficult. It's just more difficult when you're thinking about it. And so I've watched a couple of YouTube videos on how to parallel park. And I'm like, what's this triangle? What is this? Who's looking at a triangle? Where's this triangle come from? And then I quickly sort of made the assessment that I'm going to just throw that out the window. For me, it's just not working. Reference points, triangles for maneuvers, it's not working. So I just adopted the stance that I'm going to do it as safely as possible. Whatever I do on the road, I'm just going to do it as safely as possible. How did I work out what safe was? I'd seen on videos 6-point check, and I'm going back, however many years from when I did my, learner test when I was 17 to now, and like 30 years later, is that 6-point check still exist, right? Or the effective observation, as we call it, right? And so I just started to implement this effective observation in everything that I did. Wasn't really sure whether I was doing it right because I didn't have a trainer. Again, I did it off the back of posts that I'd read, advice that I'd got from, different forums, that you don't really need an instructor for part 2. If you can drive, you can drive, right? Why do you need an instructor? So I did that for a little while. And then I thought, no, I need somebody to assess me. I really need somebody to tell me whether what I'm doing is correct. And although my wife, on the other hand, was saying to me, no, you'll be fine. Just go and do it. Just give it a go, kind of thing. And yeah, it was good that I had that encouragement, but I wasn't fully sort of happy with that. I reached out to a couple of people. Can I mention names?
If they're happy with it, yeah. If not, we can edit it. Whatever.
All right, cool.
If it's a good thing, yeah, why not? Give them a shout out.
Yeah,
Send some work their way.
Yeah, no. Well, I think he's got plenty of work, but I wasn't sure whether you'll be happy to.
Oh yeah, promote away. Absolutely.
All right, cool. So yeah, I wasn't happy with just learning on my own. I wasn't getting any feedback from anybody to tell me, yeah, Miz, you're doing this right, you're doing that wrong. So from all the videos I watched on YouTube and Facebook and wherever, I came across this guy from his YouTube channel is Get Wheel Driving. His name's Roland from Get Wheel Driving. And I reached out to him via Instagram. He does mock tests on, he does like videos of mock tests and stuff like that. So I watched a few of his ADI Part 2 mock tests. And I think his just general attitude and approach to the way he dealt with the student resonated with me. And I felt that I might be comfortable with that kind of feedback. I reached out asking him if he'd do a mock test for me, an ADI Part 2 mock test. And he agreed to do it. I went down there. And when was this? This was probably mid-January. So maybe later than mid-January, maybe the third week of January. So a couple of weeks after my Part 1. Yeah. So I've only done like 2 or 3 sessions myself on my own. And I'm thinking about doing a mock test for a Part 2. He agreed to do it. I went up to see him. We did a mock test. Now, I drive an automatic. That's my daily car. I've driven automatics for years. He has a manual, and he wants me to do this mock test in his manual. I'm like, okay, I have a manual license, and I can drive manual. It's going to be a breeze. It's going to be no problem. Got in the car, couldn't turn it on. Clutch down. What the hell is a clutch? I don't even know what a clutch is, right? So that was the first stumbling block. I did the mock test. Didn't go very well. I failed the mock test. A few serious issues and a few minors. He gave me really good feedback. Honestly, he gave me some really good feedback on all the points, all the errors that I made. And he said to me, just go away and work on them. So bearing in mind, my test is on hold at the moment. I don't have a date. I've gone home that evening and I thought, okay, he's given me the feedback. I'm going to go looking for a test. So I've logged back into the DVSA website and found a test, but it was in Swansea. And obviously London to Swansea, good 3.5 hour drive. Am I going to do it? Am I going to take the risk? I looked over to my wife. She said, yeah, why not? Give it a go. Yeah. So I booked it. I didn't have much time. I think I only had about 4 or 5 days in between when I'd come back from seeing Roland. No, I tell a lie. It might have been a bit longer, about a week maybe. And having that Swansea test day. Everything Roland sort of advised me on, I just went out practicing between home and Sainsbury's and home and supermarkets or wherever I went. So all I was doing was mirror, signal, maneuver, position, speed, look, assess, side, that kind of thing. And then a week or so later went up to Swansea the night before my test. and the rest is history. Sat the test and passed it.
How did you find doing your part two in, I'm assuming Swansea was, did you know the area, or was it just that's what came up, that's what you're going doing?
Yeah, I think I'd already sort of put in my mind that if I'm a good driver, if I'm a driver of the right quality, I should be able to go and take that test anywhere in the country, absolutely anywhere. And I gave myself that sort of way of thinking. Um, so no, I had no idea what Swansea was like. Absolutely zero. I did go up the night before, the day before, and I'd found a video online of an ADI Part Two. There's only one route in Swansea, so I went and done that route probably about 4 times, and I did the route backwards a couple of times. Um, and then in the evening when I was going out for dinner, I just drove out half an hour in a different direction and tried to drive back in a different direction back to the hotel. And that's all I did. That's all I did. To be fair, the route that I did find on the internet, the majority of it did come up on my test. Probably about 25% of it was different, but 75% was the same route, but it was in backwards format, in reverse, basically, which worked absolutely brilliantly for me. I was a bit worried about the weather. You hear about tests being cancelled last minute, and I thought, all right, I'm traveling, 3.5 hours away from home overnight. Are they going to cancel on me the night before? It's Wales. Is it going to be raining? You're in the, that kind of thing. But thankfully, it was overcast. But it was a really nice drive. Really nice drive. I think well, not I think, I know I got 2 minors on the drive. I did think I'd failed it early on in the test, actually. I just brushed a curb as I was doing a left turn, and I thought I'd failed the test at that point. I didn't mount the curb. It was literally just a tyre brushing it, but I felt it. The examiner felt it. And in a way, that made me relax. It made me think, all right, what could be the worst now, right? And I just completely relaxed and just done it, really.
Nice. I did my part two in an unfamiliar area. I'm not sure whether it helped me or not, but I was certainly more aware driving somewhere that I didn't know than I would have been driving areas that I was familiar with.
Yeah.
Um, and I had a similar thought. It was almost like I can drive anywhere, and we need to be able to as well, don't we? Not to be driving instructors particularly, but we don't only drive in our own town once we pass our driving test. So I think, like you said, you kind of almost change to focusing on the skills rather than the area. And then it opens the door, doesn't it? You can go and take a short notice test in Swansea and pass it, what, 3, 4 weeks after your part one?
Yeah, I mean, look, don't get me wrong. It's not for everyone.
No.
It's not for everyone. And I might sound quite blasé about it all, but it's not that I just did 1 or 2 hours of driving or practice after getting advice from Roland. I would say, people say 10 hours of part two practice. I think I must have done about 100 hours of part two practice. Just because I just wanted to cement it into my mindset that this is all that I'm focusing on. Yes, I don't have somebody by my side telling me this is what I'm doing wrong, but I'd done the research, I'd done the reading, I'd watched the videos. Another person, Howard Floyd's videos online, invaluable. Some of that stuff is just fantastic. I watched a lot of his videos, an awful lot of his videos. And it was just the research. It was just putting in that effort and doing the research. And I think if you do that, you're going to be successful. If you try and do a part two thinking, yeah, I'm a driver, I've driven for 30 years and I don't need any practice, then yeah, I'd say, err on the side of caution, and maybe think about a little bit more research and practice before jumping into it.
I had something that you've just reminded me of there with my trainer on my part two. I did do, I think it was 2 days, so maybe 5 hours a day. And he asked at some point, I can't remember whether it was towards the end or the beginning of the training, whenever it was, he was like, so do you think you'll drive differently when you've got a student to how you'll drive when you're on your own? And I said, well, probably, yeah. He was like, you can't do that.
Yeah.
This is how you drive. This is how you need to drive. Is that because as soon as you start slipping, the way you teach is going to slip, and then you're going to struggle with your learners. So when you said about the hours that you've put in, you're exactly right. It's not just, you can't just switch it on for a part two and then switch it off on your way back. It's almost like you become that different driver, and you're always looking to develop as a driver. So it's interesting that, yeah, you've not had a trainer particularly, but you've put the work in with your own training.
Yeah. No, I totally agree. And on that note, I'm still, one of my daughters is still learning. And it was really weird. She said to me, actually, Dad, you do drive like a driving instructor. That's what she said. And I was like, what do you mean? What do you mean? She goes, no, you are checking your mirrors and you are doing everything that you're teaching me. And that sort of made me feel really good. I was like, all right, that's good. At least, practice what you preach, right?
Yeah.
So, at the end of the day, I think, you have to drive properly. And I call it properly because there's a reason why we drive like that. And in order to keep us and everybody else safe around us, we drive to the best of our ability, in accordance to the law, in accordance to the highway code. And if, like you say, if we start doing it wrong, then invariably it's going to rub off onto our pupils. And you see it, actually, you see it when you're not quite switched on with what's happening in that lesson. Maybe you've just switched off for a couple of seconds. You're gonna tell that, you're gonna feel that you've let the pupil get away with something that you've been telling them not to do. And look, we're human, right? And it happens, but you soon realize very quickly that no, this is not how we do it. This is how we drive. So that's how you're gonna drive. So yeah, no, I totally agree with that. Totally agree with that.
And that's something that's come up. I've mentioned it on the episodes before. Since qualifying, I've done a bit of in-car training, and a bit of advice I was given was improve your own driving. The better I am as a driver, the better I can deliver lessons to my students. And I have noticed it, the more aware I am as a driver, the easier it allows me to teach certain things with the learners. And we sometimes get on autopilot when we are driving, when we're darting across town, getting from one student to another student, and we need to get there, traffic's bad, whatever it is. And I find now quite regularly I'm back to consciously driving and almost commentary driving. And I'll still do that now. It's like, right, I'm easing off here. I'm touching the brake now. I'm looking here, I'm looking there. And I think if I wasn't doing it with purpose and consciousness, then yeah, you very quickly, it's back to autopilot, isn't it?
It is. I mean, complacency does, can come in really, really easily. But certainly where I teach, in the areas that I teach, the traffic is quite slow moving. So we're not rushing across, the countryside to get to the next pupil kind of thing. But and that helps. That helps, funnily enough. So you're very much conscious of, approaching junctions and lights and turning left and right. And for me, what I try and do is maybe think about the next lesson that I'm going to, and think about what I'm going to be teaching on that lesson, and trying to practice those elements on that drive to the lesson. So it keeps me refreshed that, okay, this is what I need to be doing in order to be able to teach this to the next pupil. So that's my sort of mindset on it. Yeah.
Nice. Well, that's linked us quite nicely to the next stage that I'm sure most people that are watching this are wanting to hear about, because we've done the part two in your preparation, and now we will discuss your part three.
Okay.
Um, how was that? Let's go from the beginning. What made you decide to take the route that you did and get for a part three? But how was that?
Part three was, if I say part two was hard, part three was mega hard. um, it was a completely different thing. It's like if anybody thinks that because they're a good driver, they're going to be a good instructor, they've got another thing coming. They really have. And that's not to scare people off. It's not to scare people off, but it's to make them understand that everything that we've learned in part one and part two comes together in order for you to be able to apply that and impart that knowledge to somebody else now. And it's the imparting part that I had no idea about. Yeah, okay, I understand the theory, I know the highway code, I know how to drive, but now how do I teach Josh how to drive? I have no idea. Um, so that was a scary thought. That was a real scary thought. Obviously, part one, part two done in quick time. Now I'm sort of buzzing and I'm thinking, right, I'm on this now. I need to get this part three underway. The research into part three all led me down to local audit trainers. Find yourself a local audit trainer that is going to be able to guide you through your part three training. I've never taught anything. I've never been. I've done a bit of basic sort of teaching in previous jobs, but not proper teaching. And a lot of the comments and posts that I saw online were steering people, or from what I read, steering people away from the bigger schools. So I'm sort of now stuck in two minds. Do I sort of not listen to that advice and just go for one of the big schools because it's an all-in-one package? It's nice. It's marketed very well, let's say. And it sort of, I thought to myself, yeah, it's an easy route. Can't be that difficult, right? Pay the money, do the training, and off we go, kind of thing. And then I thought to myself, no, there must be more to it. There must be more to it. So I called a local audit trainer. I met with him. He gave me a lot of good advice. Can't remember his name, to be honest, which is a shame, but he's very local to me. We had a coffee, we had a chat. He said to me, yep, I can take you through these 40 hours. And he showed me the ADI 21T, is it?
ADI 21T, yeah, so the 40 hours for the PDI license.
For the PDI license, right? So and on this form, it gives you all the different things, right? Junctions and, whatever the categories were. I don't know what they were, right? There's a reason why I don't know what they were, because I never actually used an ADI to do it. Anyway, so he's telling me, yeah, I'm going to take you through this training. We're going to tick all these boxes. I'll sign it off. You're going to get a pink license. I went, what's a pink license? He said, your trainee license. I said, what does that mean? Oh, I'm already a trainee. I'm already training to become an instructor. What is a trainee license? He said, oh, no, you have to have a trainee license. He didn't say that. He said, you need a trainee license to be able to teach students and take money for it. And I thought to myself, okay, that sounds so easy. All I've done was a part one, a part two, and he's going to show me what to do for 40 hours in terms of these subject matters. Then I'm free to go out and teach people for money. So why do I need to go through this whole qualifying process? Everybody can become a driving instructor then. And that didn't sit well with me, in all honesty. It didn't sit well with me, because I thought, no, these 40 hours are not going to be enough for me to become a teacher. People go and do their PGCE at university for, a year to become a teacher, and then go on teacher training and all that kind of stuff to become a school teacher, right? So surely, in a similar vein, we have to have more training. So I went home, researched it, And that's where I came across you, Josh, and your story about no pink badge. And I'm like, no trainee license, and he's managed to become an ADI. So it is possible, and it's not necessary to go on a trainee. And in all honesty, I was thinking about cost implications. I was thinking about I have to get a car, I have to put dual controls in it, I have to now possibly sign up with a school, um, tied into a contract, all this kind of stuff. And all those things, after doing all my research, I just thought I can't put myself in that vulnerable position. That's how I felt. I felt I would be in a vulnerable position, sort of, getting sponsored by a school and then, under their lock and key kind of thing. Obviously, I later on found out that you can get away from franchises and move on and all that kind of stuff. But at that particular time, I just thought I can't risk being tied in anywhere. Came across your video, came across your story, and I thought, yeah, this is inspiring. If I could do part 1 and part 2, and Josh has done part 3 on his own as well, then I'm going to be able to do part 3. I'm going to give it a go. What's the worst thing that can happen? That I'm going to fail? Then I'm going to have to go and get a trainer, right? And with that in mind, that's what I did. I had a car already. The only thing I had to pay for was some dual controls. Now came my issue. Where do I get students from? Can't take payment from students. Is anybody going to give me a student for free? Or if I put it out there that I'm teaching for free, I might get inundated with people that maybe aren't serious or maybe won't. Because of the way I'm committed to something, I'd want somebody committed just the same kind of thing, even though it was free. And I was a bit stuck. I asked my kids if they wanted to come on and learn with me, and the two of them said, yeah, they will. So I took my 2 daughters on as pupils. One had about 6 hours with a previous instructor, and one was brand new. Got some duals fitted. I couldn't get insurance. I couldn't get any PDI, even though I wasn't on a trainee license, any PDI insurance. So I had to get one of these monthly covers for my daughters each. So I paid, and I made sure that it covered them for tuition in my vehicle, but it covered them without dual controls. So I had to take the pedal out. I had an automatic, so I took the pedal out just so that in the event of an accident, if anything, God forbid, did happen, the police aren't going to come and find a set of dual controls in operation in the vehicle. Took the single pedal out and I just gave it a go. I taught them for about 12, 13 lessons each. That's what I did. But that was all backed off of some training that I'd done from a company called, can I mention the company?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. It was Go Green. So I was watching Go Green's content. I was a member on their Facebook page by this point. I was watching a lot of Lou Walsh's videos. And I think I attended a couple of their free Zoom sessions that they'd done. They then released one of their products or their product on a subscription basis. So I thought, all right, I've paid for a month's worth of insurance for 2 of my girls. I can pay 40 quid for the subscription. Took on a subscription. I think I binge watched the whole set of videos in like 2 days or 3 days. I would say I read about 50%, 30 to 50% of the content of the actual reading material in a period of 3 weeks, maybe. And just applied everything that I was reading and learning from the Go Green content. That was my source of training. I didn't go out with anybody. I didn't have a trainer that ever sat in the back of my car or I never ever went and sat in with an ADI, local ADI. I did reach out. I think after we spoke at that point, you said to me, reach out to some of your ADIs, Ms. in the locality, and I did. And out of the 15, 20 that I contacted, not one wanted me to come and sit in their car, which in hindsight is maybe a shame, because I think you've identified this and you've spoken about this before. I think it's invaluable. It is, especially if you get a good ADI, you're going to learn a hell of a lot from those sessions. And for somebody that's never taught, forget about teaching as a teacher, but I heard somebody say this in another video. You're teaching in the fastest moving classroom in the world, and you have to be ready and active and able to respond and deal with what the pupil's going to do. And if you don't have that experience of being in a vehicle with an ADI or with a trainer, I would say it's going to hinder you. Now, obviously, I didn't, right? I didn't have one. It's not impossible, but I would highly recommend that you get some time in the back of a vehicle, at least. If not, have somebody come and sit in on your lessons. So what did I do? I got a dash cam fitted into my vehicle. I reached back out to Roland, and I said to him, Roland, I passed part 2. I want to do my part 3. This is my predicament. I can't afford the training. I don't really want to go on a trainee license. He said to me, why not? Go on a trainee license. I said, no, I just don't feel comfortable doing it. I'm going to be taking money from the general public, and I don't feel I'm ready to be able to sort of give them value for what they're going to be paying me. So I'm going to teach my daughters. I said, but I want to send you the footage. Can I send you the footage of my lessons? And they said, yeah, of course you can. So that was a little bit of feedback that I was getting from my lessons. I was filming all of my lessons. They were a bit longer. They were an hour or an hour and a half lessons. So they weren't really 45-minute standards check or part 3 sort of format. But right at the beginning stage, it was a good way of getting some feedback as to whether what I was doing in the lesson was the right sort of thing. I also reached out to you, and you were happy to have a look at a couple of my videos. And one other person, which was Decalion from Go Green. The 3 of you were invaluable for me during those 2 weeks, or 3 weeks actually, because I had nobody else to lean on. And it was the same situation as part 2, right? I'm doing all this training on my own, but I don't know if what I'm doing is correct or if I'm applying myself correctly. The feedback I got from all of you guys was fabulous. And all that I did was try and apply what you told me and then send the new video back over, kind of thing. It's like, apply what you learn, send the new video, apply what you learn. So I think I did about 3 or 4 videos like that. I got some positive feedback and I got some critique, should we say. I got some critique, yeah? But I like critique. I thrive on critique, because critique is what is going to make me better. I don't want you all to say, oh, yeah, you did a great job. All right, so how am I going to improve? What am I going to improve on, right? Is it part 3? No, you're not quite part 3, but you did a great job. Well, what is part 3, right? So I got some really good critique on those videos, especially from Decalion and Roland. Roland spent a lot of time with me on the phone, and I'll be forever grateful to him for that. And then, oh yeah, going back, my part 3 is on hold, by the way. I booked a part 3, it's on hold. Yeah, don't know where I'm going to sit it, just doing the training. Then I thought, all right, let me have a quick look to see if there's any part 3s available. I know it's a long shot, highly unlikely. Got onto the internet, had a look. There was one in June. It was in June, and it was a local. It was North London. It was North London. So it wasn't Swansea. It was North London. Can I take my daughters there? Yeah, there's not going to be a problem. It's not like a regular pupil, so I can just sort of encourage my kids to come out and do that with me. Booked it at one of the North London test centres, Enfield, I believe it was. But it was June. A couple of days later, I looked again, and one came up in Sidcup in like a week's time. And I was in a real predicament at that point. I'm like, I've done 11 hours with one daughter, 11 hours with another. Am I really ready for it? I probably wasn't quite ready, if I look back on it and be honest with myself. But what I did in that 1 week, I did a lesson every other day for both my kids. So I'd done about 12 or 13 lessons in that week leading up to my part 3. It probably was burnout. In all honesty, I probably burnt myself out doing it. But I then started to focus on the part 3 and started focusing on the structure of the part 3. How am I going to hit the competencies? And going back to actually a video that I watched on your channel the other day with Becky, I started focusing on skills, and I stopped thinking about the competencies. And I thought, no, I need to teach them these skills. Without these skills, I'm not going to be able to get those competencies out of me in order to be able to pass the part 3. And that's what I started doing. I started teaching skills to my daughters, and they were getting it, thankfully. Yeah, sorry, I was lost track there. Obviously went for my part 3 a week later, and thankfully passed. Sorry, that was a lot of me talking, Josh. I like to ramble.
This is what I'm here for. I just sit, listen, you tell your story, and I get to upload it at some point. But that's fascinating. Your part 3, we've got your training for it, and I've got a few thoughts that I'd like to discuss shortly. But how was your part 3? How did you find it?
Excellent. In all fairness, my part 2 and my part 3, from a test point of view, the examiner, both examiners were fantastic. Really, really nice examiners. I told this to all my pupils as a story, and I said to them, look, don't fear the examiner. Do not fear the examiner. They're not there to fail you. They don't come out with a fail sheet. They come out with a pass sheet. Yeah, so don't worry about it. Lovely examiners, excellent feedback, really positive feedback. Part 3 in particular, my part 3 examiner, brilliant, absolutely brilliant. He gave me some real valuable, in-depth feedback. I didn't score a high score, but I passed. But I think what everything that he's told me and what you guys have all told me, I'm just continually applying it in all my lessons. It's not something that I'm going to forget, or it's not something that's going to go out of date, right? So we continue to apply that same knowledge and try and increase our skill set as an instructor on a day-to-day basis. But I've really enjoyed both tests. Really enjoyed it. Like I say, I tell all my pupils, do not fear the examiners.
Absolutely, and you're on point there with they don't come out to fail you as much as what all of their friends tell them. Oh, the examiner failed me. And yeah, I say the same thing. I'm like, they're just looking for a safe driver, someone that they can share the road with. I mean, it's slightly different when you're going for your part 3 and they're looking at value for money and you as an instructor. But absolutely, they're humans, and I've not had any bad experiences with them. But what I found interesting listening to your story there is actually how much work you've put in. I know I reached out, I was like, it'd be interesting to talk about your journey. You've gone from, I had it in my mind for some reason that you'd done it in 3 months. It turns out that it was a bit more condensed than that. But it does sound like you really put some work in for all 3 stages. I know they might have been done in quick succession, but did you feel that it was like all of your attention was on the next step? So like obviously when you were training for part 1, it's super focused there, part 2 and part 3.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think there was a term that my brother used, and he's because when he heard about it, he was like, all right, I can do this. I said, yeah, okay, no problem. Let's go for it. Yeah. And then I said, but the average sort of thing is like a year to 18 months. That's what it roughly takes. And he goes, oh, you must have been hyper focused. That's the term he used. And I'd never even heard. I don't even know if it is a term or not. But and I thought about it and I reflected on that term, and I was hyper focused. There was nothing else in my mindset during those 6 weeks apart from passing each stage. Um, Admittedly, I wasn't thinking about part three until passed part two. But then when I realized soon after that this is possible, and you know, if you get the test dates and you put the effort in, you're going to be able to do it. But yeah, you do have to be hyper focused. You do have to put an awful lot of effort into it. I think when we spoke previously on the phone and stuff, we've discussed this, and it's not that it's not for everybody. I think, you know, there's a type of mindset that you have to have, and you have to be able to maybe put your family to one side, put your work commitments to one side, and there is, you know, you have to have compromise in other things. And you know, I did compromise. I compromised my family life. I compromised, you know, other things around me. Um, but was it worth it? Yes, very much so. It's not that I didn't, you know, sleep at night or anything like that. I still slept at night. It's just that when I woke up, I was thinking about training. When I went to sleep, went to sleep thinking about training. But you know, at the end of the day, yes, it is going to require to do it in a short period of time, whether that be 6 days, 6 weeks, 6 months, or even a year. Even a year is a pretty short period of time to get all three parts done, especially if you're going to go onto a trainee license. And I find that I meet PDIs on the road now that have been on trainee licenses for 6 months or 8 months to a year, and they're just fully booked up. And I say to them, what kind of time are you guys getting to actually get training in? Teaching is great. Teaching is great. Don't get me wrong. But how much training are you getting in out of that? If you say to me, yeah, I've done my 40 hours and I'm now teaching, fantastic. But how do you know what you're teaching is correct? You know? So that's the thing that I would be really conscious of if I was going to say anything to anybody, that make sure you focus on your training. Try and focus hard, because it is going to be rewarding. It is going to be rewarding for sure. And if you get satisfaction out of teaching people how to do something for the first time, or something that's new, or something that they find difficult, then certainly driving is one of those skill sets that you're going to be satisfied from as an instructor.
It's certainly a rewarding job when you get through the process, and it's one thing getting your 17-year-olds, your expected students through the test, but when you're getting those older students or people that, I don't know, have lived in London and have never needed to drive, and now they've got families on the way, and they're like, I've got this job lined up, I need to drive. There's so much that you get from this job, from such a variety of people, and it is teaching skills that can change a lot of people's lives once they pass.
Very much so, very much so. And like, it's funny because you mentioned like the variety of students, right? And right now on my diary, I've got students that are 17, you know, that just turned 17, really shy, they're scared about getting into the car, all the way up to mature students who are in their 60s, never driven before, like you say, lived in London all their life, never had a need to sort of drive, but now they've decided they want to drive for whatever reason that they have. And it's amazing, you know, like you say, the transformation in their mindset that you see over those lessons. It's just phenomenal, and it's just really heartwarming, to be honest. I teach automatic, so I tend to find that a lot of my students are potentially got a bit of anxiety about driving, or have difficulty driving in a manual vehicle, and I don't tend to teach them to drive because they've done 30 hours, 40 hours with somebody else, right? They've come to me because they've got high anxiety now, and I'm like, okay, let's not worry about driving. Let's do something else. Let's just go for coffee, or let's drive down to McDonald's, or whatever it is, yeah. And it just breaks the ice, and it really helps them calm down. And I feel great when I see them relax and forget about the actual technicality of driving. Um, don't get me wrong, there is a technical element, but yeah, it's the satisfaction that's really, really nice.
Definitely. And perhaps there's another episode or two that we could do later down the line, because it sounds like the last maybe 4 months have been a bit of a whirlwind for you, and the amount of effort that you've put in, fair play to you for getting through the process as you have. And I think before the episode, I know we've spoke, but I maybe underestimated quite how much work and dedication you'd put into it. So it's
Mm.
fascinating to see that the work you've put in, you've got the rewards from it. So well done to you, and I hope you enjoy whatever comes next with being an ADI. But what I would like to do now, if we can, I've got some tell me questions, if you wouldn't mind running through them with me.
Sure, no problem. No
Should we do
problem.
that?
Yeah, let's do it.
So the first one, can you tell me what car you would drive if it was the only car you could drive forever?
Oh my God. I've driven so many cars, Josh. I've been driving since I'm 17, so it's a long time. I'm not going to tell you quite how old I am, but it's been a long, long time. I used to be a car nut, so I used to buy loads of cars. I used to change cars every year, 2 or 3 times. Yeah. But I think now that I'm at the age that I'm at, I'd love to have the car that I first bought after passing at the age of 17. And that was a car, young 17-year-old I never used to live in South London. I grew up in Kent, actually. And so as a young 17-year-old, you're thinking about how you're going to modify this car, what kind of speakers are you going to put in it, what kind of stereo are you going to put in it, and all that kind of stuff. And I bought an MG Metro. Yeah. Now
Okay.
it doesn't sound very, exotic or anything like that, but it was my everything. And it was a 1300cc engine, and it was pretty rapid for back then. Yeah. And I loved it. I drove it everywhere. It was bright red with these nasty brown seats in it. But I put a nice stereo in it. I put some speakers in it and kept it polished and clean all the time. So yeah, it's a weird one. I think I've always wanted an MG Metro again, a nice classic one that's been restored. That's what I'd want.
Do you know how many people give me the answer to this question? It's
Really?
fascinating. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, there's a lot of people that give that answer. They go back to either the first car or a car that they've owned at some point, and they want it back.
Yeah.
And just to go off on my own little tangent, do you remember when we spoke a couple of weeks back and I said I'm looking at getting a motorbike,
Yeah.
if you remember? So I had a bike about 7 years ago, a Honda CBR 600F Sport, and I
Nice.
was shopping and looking at bikes. And I don't know whether all of your answers that I'd go back to the car I first had, but that's what bike I went and bought the same year, same color. I'm like, do you know what? I loved that bike.
Yeah.
And another one came up. I'm like, I'm gonna get the same one. So it's almost identical to what I had about 7 years ago.
Excellent. Excellent.
So yeah, you've all inspired me to go back maybe 8 years and just relive those youthful years. But yeah, a nice answer. We'll just
Good.
have a collection of everyone going back to their first car.
Yeah, a whole parade of classic cars.
So the next question then, can you tell me if you could deliver a driving lesson to anyone, who would it be?
Oh, this is going to be maybe a weird answer, but it'd probably be my mother. Probably be
Okay.
my mother. Um, why my mother? She's always wanted to drive, but she just never did. Never did. She never drove. Never took any lessons. Never even attempted it. I think she might have got a provisional like yonks ago, but she never. But what she did say to me after passing was, "All right, you can now teach me to drive." That's what she said to me. Now, unfortunately, she's not well enough to drive, but if I could, I'd love to teach her to drive. That's what I'd love to do.
What a great answer.
Yeah, yeah.
Love that. I was expecting a horror story of like I normally get, not a great driver, but yeah, just to be able to do that and get her on the road. Nice.
Yeah.
Next one. Can you tell me the best advice you ever received?
Um, it's probably a few, to be honest. There's probably a few. Um, but there's a piece of advice that I tell some of my students, and that is that it's never too late to learn. So I remember many years ago, a friend of my father's, he said to me, or he said to somebody, somebody was going to sit a degree at the age of 65 or something, I don't know. And he was a lecturer, and he said, look, it's never too late to learn. And that's just stayed with me forever. And I now say that to my pupils, especially my pupils that are slightly older. I've got pupils who are 60 plus, never driven before, who are in their late 40s, early 50s. And, you know, a lot of them say to me, oh, I don't know why I waited so long. I hope I can do it. And I say to them, look, it's never too late to learn. I could give you a piece of advice or a bit of knowledge that you would never have heard of right now, not related to driving, to anything. But if I give you that piece of advice, you're going to learn it. And it's in exactly the same way I'm going to deal with your lessons. It's a new bit of advice. You're just going to take it on board and try and absorb it. So yeah, best bit of advice, I would say, never give up learning.
Excellent bit of advice there. Can you tell me your favorite book?
Oh, book. I'm not a big book person, to be honest. I've never read books. I think that would be really tough. But the only one I can really remember is going to be from when I was at secondary school. And that was a book called Of Mice and Men.
Hmm. Yep.
I don't know. It's probably showing my age now, right? I don't know. But
I studied that as well.
did you?
Yeah.
There you go. There you go. So that fascinated me because of the story and you know the emotions in that book. But I'm not a big book person, to be honest. It's not a very good question for me, unfortunately. But of all the books that I've read, probably Of Mice and Men.
Nice. You get second chance for this one. Do you listen to audiobooks or anything like that, or you don't do that either?
I listen to a few podcasts. I can tell you one of my favorite podcasts.
Go on then.
It's called, oh my God, I forgot the name. Serial. I think it's called Serial. It's about a guy who got incarcerated in a Baltimore prison in America. And a journalist was receiving calls from this inmate regarding a murder that he'd committed, or supposed murder that he'd committed. And it was, I think I binged it. Once I listened to the first episode, I just binged all the way through it. And they're supposed to be releasing a few more episodes. He did get released from prison recently because they found him innocent. But yeah, that was a fascinating podcast. Fascinating podcast.
There we go. Everyone's got a little bonus for that one.
Yeah.
So the next one then, can you tell me one message you would give to someone who's thinking of coming into the industry?
Probably a few messages, to be honest, but go in eyes wide open and do your research. I think that's the key thing. Now, do your research is a bit vague because you can read and read and read and get a lot of conflicting messages. Think about your personal circumstances. How is this journey going to affect you personally? Now, obviously we spoke about my story. My story, I think, it's not that it's exceptional because I've heard of ADIs who have qualified in short periods of time. However, I think all the tests just aligned with me. There was an element of not fluke or luck, but it's just the tests aligned, and I just did them. But I would say you need to be dedicated. You need to put some effort in. I see a lot of people applying for um, the membership of the register to become a PDI, and a lot of people going around, especially where I live, unfortunately, in South London, there's a lot of people that are trying to get through the qualifying process. Now, is everybody cut out for it? No. Can most people do it? I think most people, if they put the effort, they can. I know the pass rates that they advertise maybe not in our favor, or in the favor of the big schools advertising their big packages and stuff. But I think that pass rate can be upped, but it needs to be upped by way of either good training, which I think there are loads of good trainers out there. You've had some superb trainers on your podcast, really have. And if I had the time, or if I was in a situation where I had to go to them, then no doubt some of those guys would be guys that I'll be contacting. It's not necessarily always the right option to go to a big school, but each their own. There are people that I know, people that have been in big schools and they really enjoyed it. They really benefited from the training, from the franchise, from the pupil allocations. It's not that they're bad. It's just not for everybody. So go in there, eyes wide open, do your research, think about your own personal circumstances before committing to something. What was good for me may not be necessarily good for you. Yeah, I think that would be and just study hard. Study hard, commit to the part 3 training. Part 1 and part 2, you can get some training and get through it. But the part 3 training, really commit to learning how to be a coach or a teacher. That is the vital element of this job. You're going to spend. I spend a lot of time in the passenger seat of my car, and you're not going to be driving. You are going to be driving mentally and verbally. You're not going to be physically driving that vehicle, and so you need to be prepared for that.
Absolutely. Great answer. Some really good advice there for people. Thank you for that. Can you tell me one piece of advice that you'd give a student before they go for their driving test?
Believe in yourself. That's what I give. That's the advice I give to all of my students, is believe in yourself. The minute you stop believing in yourself, things could potentially begin to fall apart. Yes, we have people with anxiety and nerves and stuff like that. And it's easy for me to say, believe in yourself. But it's something that I try and reiterate throughout every single lesson. If a pupil makes a mistake, I have a pupil, for example, they came to my lesson, they've been learning with their father, and they came to me and said, my father shouts at me and so I can't deal with it, and so obviously we take an approach from that as a coach or an instructor. We think to ourselves, okay, so she's given us the problem, so the solution is going to be easy, right? The solution is just don't shout at her, right? And so a lot of my students say to me, Miz, you're quite calm. I try to stay calm in the car, right? And so a lot of them say, you're really calm. You don't get upset about me curbing your wheels, or you don't get upset about me getting close with my door mirror to the width bollard. And I said, well, why would I get upset? I'm here to teach you. If I don't teach you how to resolve that issue, then you're only going to blame me for not teaching you, right? So if I get upset when you hit that curb, I should be upset with myself, not with you. And so that's how I try and kind of calm them down, or give them a little bit of self-belief. But yeah, believe in yourself, and remember that they come out with a clean sheet. Only you can put a mark on that sheet.
Great answer. Some great advice there for the students as well. And can you tell me something that you wish you were better at?
Oh, there's a lot. There's an awful lot. That list is going to be never ending. That list is going to be never ending. my God, better teacher, better instructor, better driver, better father, better husband, better brother, better, I mean, better at everything, really. Like I said, we're never going to cease to learn, right? So that CPD, we do CPD as whatever profession we're in, there's CPD, right? That CPD should never end throughout every facet of your life. You're always going to be a better mother, father, brother, sister, coach, instructor. So everything.
What a great answer and a great connection there with the CPD. I'm not going to go off at a tangent with that, but I'd never thought of it in that context that we do it for work. What about every other avenue of our life?
Yep, absolutely.
Fascinating. Thank you very much for those answers. Before we look to wrap up the episode, do you have any final messages for people?
Final messages. People, what, general people or PDIs, ADIs?
PDIs, ADIs, but I guess whoever's watching this really, generally instructor industry related, but you can say whatever you want. Go for it.
All right, I'll stick to PDIs because I'm a newly qualified ADI and I don't think I'm anywhere near ready to give advice to other ADIs, but not to my fellow PDIs, because obviously I've qualified now, but to PDIs that are on the journey, just keep striving to get that badge. It's going to be hard. There's going to be good days. There are going to be bad days. Find yourself, if you are struggling, find yourself a good trainer. There are some really good ones that obviously you've brought onto your show. There are independent ADIs actually in every locality that are old grade 6 ADIs or new grade 8, ADIs. Funnily enough, my old grade 6 ADI from when I learned at the age of 17, he's still in the area and he's still an ADI in the area. So I'm going to try and reach out to him. Anyway, so there are some old grade 6 and new grade 8 ADIs out there that are actually really good at what they do. Spend some time with them if you can. Where are you going to find them? You're going to find them at test centers. You're going to find them on WhatsApp groups, Facebook groups. Yes, you've got audit instructors out there who are the recommended sort of group of people that PDIs go to for their training. The DVSA recommend audit instructors. However, it's not necessary. It's not necessary. If you find someone that's closer to you, maybe traveling up to Mick or Lee, miles away somewhere, is going to be quite difficult. But if there's someone good local to you, get in touch with them. What I found is that ADIs who want to train PDIs will accommodate you. They will accommodate you. Yeah, we have ADIs that, they're focused on their business and they want to build their business and they don't really have time for PDIs. And that's great. That's great. But you're also going to find those ADIs that are going to give you some space, give you some time. Reach out to them. Reach out to them and utilize them.
I love it. Miz, thank you so much for your time tonight. It's been fascinating listening to your story. I've really enjoyed it. I'd love to catch up again in the future. It's been great. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. You're welcome. Anytime, Josh. Thank you for having me.
Thank you. No problem.